shaking so much, so I set the book on the table and began. I don't even like spending time with my mom. She's such a pushover and just so annoying. But hey, I might as well use it to my advantage. I stopped. As I glanced over the following words myself, I knew I couldn't say the rest out loud. Mom, I'm not going to read my diary to you. That's personal. Here was my chance. I could try and flip it on her. That always worked. Plus, why had she even gone in my room and snuck around in the first place? And then read my diary? Suddenly, I felt anger coming on. Reading someone's diary goes against every code in human history. I was the victim here, not her. So I started shouting at her. Why would you even sneak around and read my diary anyway? That's mine. She started to sit back in her chair, and for a moment, it seemed like maybe I was going to get off the hook. So I continued. I can't believe you would do that. You're supposed to trust me. How can I trust or respect you if you can't even trust me? I flung myself back in my chair, crossed my arms, and shook my head disapprovingly, wanting to seem as disappointed as possible. I know my mom, and I just knew that the last thing she wanted was for me to not trust her. When I looked back over at her, she looked completely resigned, sitting there so calmly, with her elbows on the table, her chin resting on her hands, listening. Smiling even, looking me dead in my eyes. I couldn't stand to look back in hers for more than a moment. After what felt like forever of sitting there across from one another in silence, she started to speak. I was getting ready for her apology and even reciting my own. It's okay, but you have to do better speech, when she said, you don't need to trust me or even respect me anymore. I was totally confused. As a matter of fact, you don't need to worry about me at all. Her voice was still so calm, eerily so. This is different, I thought. Where is this going? As if she had read my mind, she said, in case you're wondering where this is going, what I'm trying to say is that I want nothing to do with you anymore. I was stunned, totally and completely stunned. I just sat there for a minute, staring at her, blinking. Nothing was processing. I couldn't even speak. Okay, she continued. It seems perhaps I should spell this out for you. I'm disowning you. You'll be out of the house by the end of the day. The movers will be here in a few hours to help you with your things. They'll leave them outside of your father's home unless you prefer other arrangements. Either way, you'll have to take it up with them when they get there. Please don't contact me. We have no reason to speak. After what I read, I never want to hear another word from you. That didn't help my shock. I felt totally numb and frozen, although I was starting to shake again. She started to get up from the table. My panic was really setting in now, along with the reality of the situation. She was serious. I was about to try and say something, anything, when she cut me off. Oh, and Melissa? I looked up at her, hopeful. Good luck. And with that, she swiftly walked away from the table and into her bedroom, gently locking the door behind her. I was a total and complete mess now. I went to her room and started banging on her door, begging for forgiveness, begging for her to just talk to me. But she was completely silent. I put my ear to the door and there was just some soft, peaceful music playing and the sound of running water. Was she drawing a bath right now? In the middle of all of this? Was she actually okay with it all? I banged on the door some more. Mom, you can't just cut me out. What am I going to do? Nothing. I started to cry and scream, still banging on the door and jiggling at the handle. I was having a total meltdown. Eventually, I was too exhausted to continue, so I slid down the door until I was just a big pile on the floor. I must have fallen asleep there because the next thing I knew, there was a knock at the front door. I was almost confused. It had all felt like some bad dream. I opened my eyes and saw that my mom's bedroom door was still shut tight. Mom, get the door! Still nothing but music in the background. The banging continued at the front door, so I managed to pick myself up off the floor and go to answer it. When I opened, it was the movers. I had completely forgotten that they were coming. I tried to tell them to go away, but they said they had very direct orders, and they walked right in and headed straight up the stairs to my room. I felt completely helpless and didn't even have the energy to fight it anymore. Within 2 hours, my entire life was loaded up in a truck. My mom never even came out of her room once. I went with the movers to my dad's. I didn't even know if my mom had called to let him know what was going on. I didn't even care. The sun was already starting to go down by the time we got to his house. There it was, his small, busted-up old home. I had to step over the clutter on his porch just to ring the doorbell. When he answered, he looked completely surprised, but he was excited to see me. What a relief. I explained the whole situation and he hugged me and motioned for the movers to go ahead and start unloading my things. He put his arm around me as we walked inside and he offered some dinner. Over dinner, we talked about how we could rearrange the house so that I could have my own room. Dad even made it sound exciting, like a project we could work on together. Maybe things won't be so bad, I thought. Yeah, maybe this is all happening for a reason. After all, since my mom divorced my dad, I only get to see him every so often, and we always have so much fun together. My dad was super cool. I never understood why my mom left him in the first place, and I had always been so angry with her because of it. That night, my dad and I had the best time. We caught up and laughed until our sides hurt, like we always did. We ordered food for delivery that I never got to eat at my mom's house. Fried chicken, pizza, soda, you name it. I was in heaven. Being with my dad again made me feel even more angry with my mom for all the times I had missed out on with him. I was so happy to spend time with him and suddenly not at all worried about things with my mom. Why had I ever wanted to stay with her in the first place? She was so boring in comparison. I fell asleep in total peace. But in the morning, everything looked different. As I did my usual morning stretch and routinely reached over for my iPad, with my eyes still closed, all of a sudden, my hand felt something mushy. I looked over, totally freaked out. It was some old, leftover mashed potatoes? I could hardly even tell. Maybe that's what that smell had been all night. Yuck! Oh well. I got up and was bringing the potato dish to the sink to wash. As I was walking to the kitchen, I noticed what an absolute disaster the house was. Clothes, food, crumbs, you name it, all over the place. When I got to the kitchen, there were dirty dishes overflowing the sink. Gross! I opened the fridge and it was practically empty, just some leftover chicken bones. When I closed it, there was a note. Had to run, won't be back till late tonight. Wish I could be there to help. Love you, kiddo. This was pretty typical. I decided to start unloading the boxes, a little bummed that my dad had bailed. As I started unpacking, I realized there was no space for any of my stuff, anywhere. The whole house was filled with clutter. I called my dad. Hey kiddo, what's up? Hey Dad, so I'm starting to get situated over here, but there's not really any room for my stuff. Oh yeah, I thought about that. I was thinking we could sell some of it. Maybe even put it towards your rent. I spoke with my buddy this morning. He owns a pawn shop down the street and said he'd take a look later on. But listen, I gotta run. I'll see you later. He then hung up. What did he just say? Sell my stuff? Rent? No. This was not happening. I sat down in the living room to brainstorm, moving stuff out of my way so I could sit down, when a mouse shot out from under the couch and ran across my feet. I jumped up and screamed, running out of the house as fast as I could. There was no way I was going to stay here. It was at that moment that I realized I might have understood why my mom had left him all those years ago. Regardless, she's still a total pushover, and I didn't want to admit she was right. Later on in the week, my dad said his friend with the pawn shop was on his way over to check out my stuff. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Dad, I can't stay here. I'm sorry. I can't just sell my stuff, and I need a cleaner space. I just need more space, period. I love you, and I hope you're not mad at me. I think it would be best if I try and stay at Mom's again. He totally understood. He said he had been thinking the same thing, but didn't want to make me feel bad and told me his home was always open. We hugged and then made a plan for how I might get Mom to respond. We had more fun than ever, connecting and laughing about how much of a people-pleaser Mom is. We both had the same views on her. Out of nowhere, I knew the text I needed to send. I wrote it out and showed it to my dad. It said, I think maybe I'm starting to understand why you left, and I think I was wrong about you. I'm sorry. So simple and so genius. He said, sent. Within minutes, she responded, let's talk. I couldn't believe it worked. We agreed to meet at one of our old cafe spots. I was nervous to see her. When we got together, Mom was super guarded and tense from the start. To disarm her, I acted super humble. I had my shoulders hunched and head down as I sat down. When I finally lifted my head to look at her, I even managed to work up some tears. Mom, I started. I can't believe how wrong I was about you this whole time. I thought you left Dad because you were selfish, but now I'm starting to think he's the selfish one. I looked over to see if it was working. It was. Her eyes were wide with concern and compassion. so I kept going. Dad's house is disgusting. He bailed on me on the very first day, and almost every day since then. And Mom, he even expects me to pay rent. She was shaking her head as if she was unsurprised. I know I said some terrible things, and I'm so sorry, but I said them out of anger, and I had it all wrong. Can you ever forgive me, Mom? By now, she had melted into her usual soft self. This is too easy, I thought. Within no time, she forgave me. We talked for almost 2 hours. At one point, she even started to cry. It took everything for me not to roll my eyes at her, and by the end of it, I was totally drained. But she agreed to let me come back, and we even agreed to meet up at my favorite brunch spot the next day for old time's sake. That night, I was so excited. I had won! All I could think of was my cozy bed, my clean room, and all of the high-class living I would have once again. When I got back to my dad's place, to no surprise, he wasn't there. By now, he wasn't even leaving notes anymore. I was used to it. I texted him, "Dad, our plan worked. She totally fell for it. She's so easy. I'll be living back at Mom's place in no time, LOL." He never responded, but that wasn't a surprise either. I was just happy to be in control again. The next morning, I got all dolled up and met Mom for lunch. Things were right back to normal, and we were eating even more lavishly than we ever had before. I guessed it was her way of making up for kicking me out. By the end, we were both stuffed, but Mom still ordered 2 desserts. My favorite. Boy, she was really sucking up. I was in heaven. But as soon as the desserts came, Mom patted her lips with her napkin and suddenly stood up, thanking me for the wonderful meal. I was completely caught off guard. Seeing as you and your dad have teamed up, I'm sure you will enjoy living with him. Oh, and if you reach out this time, it won't work. When I tried to act confused, she simply said, "Check your texts," and winked as she walked away. I looked, and there it was. Sure enough, I had texted my mom instead of my dad last night. There I was again, dumbfounded, with my heart in my toes. Now what?